So for 31, I'm going to make a table, sketch a graph, see what the vertex axis of symmetry is, whether it's a maximum or minimum point. When I look at 31, it doesn't fit what 13 through 24 is. There's not a parentheses to the right of an equal sign. There is just an x squared to the right of an equal sign. So 31 is more like 1 through 12. And the table for 31 that I'm going to need to do is the -2, -1, 0, 1, 2 table. So there's two strategies that we have so far for getting tables. If there's parentheses, we change the sign of the number in the parentheses. We shove it in the middle of my x column. If there's no parentheses and no x to the first power term to the right of the equal sign, we use the -2 to 2 table. Let me get my y's quickly. So mode 7, negative by the fraction 2, alpha in right parentheses x squared plus 3. The negative is going to make it turn over. Start at -2 equals, end at 2 equals step 1. First point is -2 comma -5. Second point is -1 comma 1. Third point is 0 comma 3. Fourth point is 1 comma 1. Fifth point is 2 -5. So I can tell that I have a good table because my y's repeat. If my y's don't repeat, I haven't picked the x's properly. So -1, -2, 0, 1, and 2 in the x column. I need to get down to -5 in my y column. And up to 3 in my y column. So first point's not the vertex I just plotted, -2, -5. Second point isn't the vertex I just plotted. Third point is the vertex. I'm going to write it in and say it's the vertex. Fourth point I just plotted. Fifth point I just plotted. The negative in front of the parentheses makes this an upside down parabola. It makes the vertex a maximum point. Supposed to actually go through the points. It is kind of what it is. So made my table of values, sketched a graph. Now I'm going to draw the axis of symmetry in, and it's not going to show up so well because it's on the axis, but this is my axis of symmetry. There's my AOS, and it always has an equation that just has an x, and it's whatever number it goes through on the x-axis. In this case, it's 0. And now I need to say whether the vertex is a maximum or minimum point. Here, the vertex is a maximum point because the parabola is upside down. And the maximum y value is 3. There isn't going to be a point on the graph that has a y coordinate that's bigger than 3. And usually when we do this, we give props to the x. So I'll say which occurs when x equal to 0. So these are just repetitive. There isn't really anything new other than trying to pluck out a table. And I generally want to get my table using my calculator. No need to get grunged down into the fractions. Let's skip 33. But do 35. And I'm going to stop doing these problems because I think you don't need another example and move on to the last kind of problems that we're going to have to graph, which are the problems from 37 through 48. So 1 through 12 were all -2 to 2 tables. 13 through 24 were all parentheses tables. 25 through 36 were a mix of -2 to 2 tables and parentheses tables. 37 through 48, they're this kind of problems. There's no parentheses. But there's both an x squared and an x to the first power term to the right of the equal sign. And these, you could actually use completing the square to make them look like the parentheses problems, but that's ridiculous. For these, there's a formula to get the number in the middle of the x column. And it's the part of the quadratic formula without the square root part is just x equals negative b over 2a. So just an x squared and not an x to the first power term, like problems 1 through 12, negative 2 to 2 for your table, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. Parentheses problems, like most of the middle problems, just change the signs. Both an x to the first power and x to the second power term, we need to use the negative b over 2a formula. That's going to be everything between 37 and 48. All these problems have both an x squared term and an x to the first power term. Then here I have to use a formula. The x coordinate of the vertex is found by negative b over 2a, where the a and the b are from the quadratic formula. So my instructions say find the vertex, or get the x coordinate of the vertex using this formula. Make a table, sketch a graph, identify the vertex, the axis of symmetry, say whether the vertex is a maximum or minimum point, and then state the maximum or minimum value. For these problems, the y's can get ridiculously big, and I don't always plot all 5 points. Sometimes I just plot 3 points if the y's get to be a nuisance to graph. So let me do 38. And in 38, a is the number in front of the x squared term, which is the implied 1. B is a 10. I would be wrong just to change the sign on the 10 to negative 10. I would be wrong to use negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. When there's both an x squared and an x to the first power term, I have to use the formula negative b over 2a to get my table started. So negative b is going to be negative and then 10. 2a is going to be 2 times 1. This is going to be negative 10 over 2, which is negative 5. So in the middle of my x column, I need negative 5. If I'm going to use my calculator to get the table, which I strongly prefer, I need my numbers to go from smallest to biggest, which means I need to go smaller and bigger. So those are my x's. Now I'm going to get my y's. Mode 7, alpha x squared plus 10 alpha x minus 11. Start at negative by the fraction 7, end at negative by the fraction 3, step 1. Ugh, what a horrible start. I'm going to have to really kind of goof around on the y-axis. I'm not going to draw 36 tick marks to get down to negative 36. I'm just going to estimate. So these problems are really hard for me to predict on what the y's are going to be. So this is a horrible graph to plot, but I know I'm good here because the y's repeat. So now I'm going to do my best to graph this. And on my y-axis, let me just go down by 5. So I'll do negative 5, negative 10. I'm not going to go down by 1. Negative 15. I'll probably go off the screen anyways. Negative 20, negative 25, negative 30, negative 35. And I think I can plot them from here with some sort of accuracy. So negative 7, negative 32, maybe about there. That's maybe not even 7. Negative 6, negative 35. These are really hard for me to plot without graph paper. Estimate negative 5, negative 36. And then, gosh, that's not even lining up right. Let me, my graph was getting to be so horrendous. Let me just do this. Go negative 5, negative, it's not even going to work. Negative 5, negative 10, negative 15, negative 20, negative 25, negative 30, negative 35. So first point, negative 7, negative 32. So down to 7, about negative 32. And then negative 6, negative 35. Negative 5, negative 36. Negative 4, negative 35. And negative 3, negative 32. I don't know how great this is. When the x and y axes are incremented differently, you distort the shape of the parabola. So I've kind of distorted this parabola, but I got it graphed more accurately than I could without graph paper. So here's the point, negative 5. Is that what it was? Negative 36. That's my vertex. I draw in my axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry is x equal to negative 5. This vertex, because it's at the bottom, it's a minimum point. And the minimum y value, the smallest y value of all the points, is y equal to negative 36. And it occurs when x is negative 5. This is really stressful because of the ridiculous y's. It's going to happen a lot in these bottom group of problems. That was not stellar, just kind of is what it is. Boy, try 37 and skip 39. Let's just do a couple of these. Let's do skip 41. Let's do 43 together. So because of the multiple x's, the x for my table, I have to use the formula negative b over 2a. And in problem 43, a is negative 1. B is 6, so negative b over 2a is going to be negative 6 over 2 times negative 1. It's going to be negative 6 over negative 2, which is positive 3. So when I go to graph problem 43, the number in the middle of my x column is going to be 3. I'm going to go bigger and smaller. Have no desire to get the table without a calculator, so mode 7, and then negative by the fraction alpha right parentheses for x squared plus 6 alpha right parentheses for x plus 4, start at 1, end at 5, step 1. My y's are 9, 12, 13, 12, and 9. If your y's don't repeat, you don't have a good starting x table. Your x's aren't good. Even this is a nuisance for me to graph, but I can probably do this better than the last ones. I maybe don't need to resort to graph paper. So, I don't know. Let me go up by 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So 1 comma 9, 2 comma 12, 3 comma 13, 4 comma 12, 5 comma 9, best I can. The negative in front of the x squared makes it go upside down, makes the vertex a maximum point. Good enough graph. I'm not that artistic. This is good enough. Let me draw the axis of symmetry in. Forgot to label the vertex. So 313 is the vertex. The axis of symmetry is x equal to 3. Because the vertex is at the top of the parabola, the vertex is a maximum point. which means the y-coordinate of the vertex is bigger than all the other y-coordinates. So y equal to 13 is the maximum y value of all the points. And then we do props to the x here, which occurs when x equal to 3. That's everything. I was asked to make a table of values. I used the formula to get the value for the x is in my table. Made a table, sketched a graph, labeled the vertex, labeled the axis of symmetry. Because the vertex was at the top, I said it was a maximum point, and then I made my little blurb. Just a few more problems. We'll definitely skip 47 because the vertex would be a fraction and this would be a disaster. Why don't you try 45? Maybe I'll just get you started on 45 with the table, and then we'll just end the section. I won't finish the graph. So I'm going to use the formula negative b over 2a to get the table started in 45, where the a is negative 3 and the b is 6. So I'm going to do negative 6 over 2 times negative 3. That's going to be negative 6 over negative 6. I'd get 1 in the middle of my x column, go smaller than 1 and bigger than 1. Do whatever you need to do to get the y's. Here, the vertex is going to be a maximum point because of the negative in front of the parentheses. So I think I'm just going to cut my losses here and call that the end of the section. Really strongly recommend getting some sort of technology to get the y's. We're also going to do graphs in chapter 7, and the y's are a nuisance to do without some sort of technology. Mode in 1 or mode in 2 to get out of the graphing mode. All right, I'm going to pause it and call it done.